Namaste, ladies and gentlemen. In my previous video, I was talking about the Matrikanyasas and their referral points and exactly I was speaking about giving the reference of science of sound or the science of vibrational aspects to it. In this video, let's try getting to the subject much further, wherein I will be talking about certain sounds which are basically from the Vedic chanting or Upanishadic chanting, which is more or less talking about the enunciation and pronunciation of the sounds, which directly or indirectly affect our body as a whole. Now, if we really see this universe, if by and large gets to the highest level, let's say I am traveling, the sound comes very much feeble, but the moment it comes downward, that's when actually things start going. Okay. Here are the list of sounds which I would want to specifically talk about, which exist and coexist in Sanskrit language as a whole, which are tat, tad, ya, thya, aha, aha, sthi, sant, strong dha, 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 ana, ana, kam, vam, lam, yam, ram, yaha, parayaha, parayaha, praparayaha, ghati, gati, vinisat. Now, if we really look at this language as a whole, we need to talk about the vowel sounds as well. A, E, I, O, U. E, 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 U, U, U. Akara, akara, ukara, ukara, akara, ikara, imkara, aimkara, makara bijas. Or these you can say basically are the very much prevalent to understand the very concept about the sounds part. Now, if we really look at Natya Shastra, or whether when we chant Ekameva Advitiyam Prajnanam Brahma Mananat Trayate iti mantraha Antarmukha Samaradhya Bahirmukha Sudurlabha. When we pronounce and enunciate these words, a sound of A sound, sound, I sound, Vakara bija, or Vakara sound, or A sound, all these, if we enumerate and enumerate, when we try to enunciate or pronunciate, the effect will be totally different on the body, which we need to understand. First thing, to have that understanding, Gananam tva ganapatigum havamahe kavim kavinam mupamashravastamam ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिः साधनम्. Now, if we really look at these sounds which I am pronouncing, how does it affect? One may ask, and why am I taking these only from the Vedic chanting? See, if you really see the name also, when we pronounce the name, right? Let's say Lavanya, Pushpa, Lalita. All these are the basic attributes that are existing in the universe, multiverse. Ladies and gentlemen, understand this. And this is where the stress part and the strain part comes into picture. And most importantly, one should be going beyond the lines, beyond the words and alphabets. Because the moment you try to get into that, and when you get that into your body, imbibe that, that's when actually you will understand the force. How you will understand whole of this concept? Again, this concept is nothing but yoga aspect. Yoga and sama yoga aspect. Understand this, ladies and gentlemen. At a deeper level of understanding. However, the consciousness part, so-called soul, which does exist, nevertheless. But point over here is, to what extent are we able to understand this? That's the real question, ladies and gentlemen. And this is more or less prevalent in classical dance form and classical musical art form. Now, today, in the fine arts and culture, it's I don't really see anyone looking at this at a highest level. If only that was understood, and if only that was the thing which research scholars or the scientists in the fields of medical science or science or astroscience are able to work on it, today they would have found out a solution, or they would have found out an answer for Kasmai Devaya Havisha Videna. The point is, if I really see this, Natya Shastra is not only a text for the classical dancers, but it is very much a text for the normal human existence, which is nothing but that so-called Natya Brahma or Natya Sutra Dhara or Shiva or Purusha was trying to explain to Prakriti, or Prakriti, in other words, Mother Goddess or Parvati Devi. I don't deny, I am not trying to contradict the very concept of Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara's concept. But primarily, if you really see, for anyone to get to that understanding about the consciousness nature, very aspect of producing the text of Natya Shastra is nothing but giving that inference of consciousness nature. And here I need to get two things into the viewer's mind. One is, there is virtual state of mind, and the other is true state of, exact state of mind. Exact state of mind is again divided into three parts. One is that thing which you create from the imagery and the auditory part. That is what is creative imaging, creative, that creative, that intuitive part which gives you some picture, some output out of it. And the second thing is that thing which is governed by that state of mind, which is governed by attributes, which are nothing but panchabhutas, pancha karmendriyas, pancha jnanendriyas, pancha koshas, and dharma, artha, kamya, moksha aspect. Now, here is where one needs to really get to a point where he or she needs to really think about, which is nothing but where does this actually get to? It gets to the nervous system, central nervous system of the mind. And most importantly, there are 72,000 nadis in the body and 16,500 nadis which actually act. So, this is what is the human existence anatomy. And the same thing, if you take from the literal sense of, from the scientific point of view, beyond a point, which is nothing but terrestrial world. Again, terrestrial world, interterrestrial world, intraterrestrial world, extraterrestrial world, and the ultimate terrestrial world. There also, that body is what you call terrestrial being is also not terrestrial body also blemishes. The point is, what we need to understand over here is the governing factors of the human existence as a whole in its true and exact sense. Consciousness is not only about not only very important for anything and everything. Consciousness study is what you call a vital study, which more or less helps one to understand his or her meaning of life. Once we understand this at a highest level, that's where actually lies the key. And how do we get to understand the whole of this concept? From the imagery and auditory point of view. How does that imagery and auditory aspect happen? When you try to get into the shoes of the character. When I say getting into the shoes of the character, it's empathizing. Or trying to get into the character of some name, let's say Rama, Ravana, Rakshasa, Kaikeyi. All these are the names given to those to that human existence form, which gives rise to the aesthetics and moral stories or morality of the human existence as a whole. That's what is Natya Shastra all about. And getting back to 108 karnas, which I have been talking in my previous video as well as even this video, is every video I talk about that, is understanding that 360 degrees view of the very nature, virtual and actual nature. How does that actually how do you get connected to both? How do you connect them? This classical dance form helps us to get connected using that scientific approach. Though from the Vedic perspective and Upanishadic perspective, if we really see, one should be having that feeling and that kind of thing. Though from the science perspective, if one really wants to get to that understanding, it cannot be seen. It's unseen effect, ladies and gentlemen. And if one says, if one says that how are you able to explain whole of this, I would say it is only the divine thing that is making me talk, or else I would not be able to even talk about it. How was it possible? Yoga and that sama yoga aspect. Not only that, this yoga and sama yoga happens only when you tend to develop that yoga drashta, yoga drushya, yoga maya and yoga mahamaya. If you think that this thing is going to stop over here, no. The moment you get to that state of mind, you will have to have these attributes, coupled with these attributes, which is what is explained in Natya Shastra in the form of text. Adbhuta, Bhayanaka, Naya, Abhinaya, Satvika Abhinaya, etc. Angika, Vachika. So, this is one key aspect or the research area which I feel not any of the research scholar is able to really look at it in the more broader sense. If one really looks at it and tries to do a research on this, I would say that he or she would be need to get to that null state of mind. This universe is a null state. Understand this? It's shunya. Reason being, you will not find whatever that you are seeing in this world, these houses, these cars or whatever it is, or you as a whole. Understand this? That's the reason why I say this is that illusionary world or that auxiliary world. Once you get into this illusionary and auxiliary world, that's when you get to the real world. Real world comes when you happen to experience everything. That's the ultimate conscious state of mind. That's the end. However, I would be explaining about the terrestrial components. That's a subject altogether, different subject altogether. And then comparing the same with it. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. Have a nice day.